The sun burned high, scorching the earth. Dust clung to my boots as I rode, my heart pounding like war drums. My father, Tahoma, was missing. An old man, 85 winters etched into his bones, gone from our camp before dawn. He'd wandered before, drawn to places where his grandfather hunted, where our people's stories lived in the wind. But today felt wrong. The air was heavy, thick with warning. I gripped the reins, my knuckles whitening. My warriors, 6 of them, loyal as blood, rode behind me, their horses' hooves thundering across the hard ground. We were headed to the white man's land, to a ranch carved out of our ancestors' hunting grounds, a place where trouble waited. Father had spoken of the creek last night, his voice soft, like the whisper of leaves. "Water calls to all living things," he'd said, his eyes distant, seeing memories I couldn't touch. He'd mentioned a rancher, Caleb Thornton, a man who claimed this land as his own. Bought it, he said, with sweat and blood. As if our people hadn't bled here first, long before his kind came with their fences and deeds. I didn't trust Thornton. Didn't trust any white man who thought a piece of paper gave him the right to own what the Creator gave to all. But Father, he saw something in this rancher, something worth testing. I wasn't so sure. The ridge loomed ahead, a jagged line against the blazing sky. My stallion snorted, sensing my tension. I raised a hand, slowing the war party. Below us, the creek sparkled, its waters catching the sun like shattered glass. And there, beneath a twisted cottonwood, I saw him, my father, Tahoma. His gray hair gleamed like silver threads, his weathered hands clutching a walking stick. He sat still, too still, his body slumped against the tree. My breath caught sharp as a blade. He wasn't alone. A white man stood over him, tall, broad-shouldered, his hat casting a shadow across his face. Caleb Thornton, the rancher. His stance was rigid, hands on hips, a rifle leaning against his saddle nearby. My blood surged, hot and fierce. If he'd hurt my father, if he dared lay a hand on him, this land would drink his blood before the sun set. "Hold," I whispered to my warriors. Red Wind, the youngest, his war paint still fresh on his cheeks, nodded, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. Cloud Dancer, steady as stone, gripped his knife, ready for my signal. We were 8 against 1, but I knew better than to underestimate a man on his own land. Ranchers like Thornton were stubborn, quick to pull a trigger when cornered. I scanned the scene, my mind racing. Father wasn't standing, wasn't moving. A thin trickle of blood stained his forehead, dark against his weathered skin. My heart twisted, a mix of fear and fury. Had he fallen? Or had Thornton struck him? I couldn't tell, not yet. But I'd find out. And if this rancher was to blame, he'd learn what it meant to cross an Apache. I spurred my horse forward, the others following in tight formation. The ground shook beneath us, dust rising like a storm. Thornton turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw us crest the ridge. His hand reached for the rifle, then froze. Smart man. He knew 6 bullets wouldn't outrun 8 warriors. I dismounted in one fluid motion, my boots hitting the earth with purpose. My warriors stayed mounted, their hands resting near their weapons, silent but ready. The air crackled with tension, like the moment before lightning strikes. I fixed my gaze on Thornton, studying him. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the hard lines of a man who'd fought for everything he had. But his eyes, they held fear. Good. Fear kept men honest. "Father," I called, my voice cutting through the stillness. I spoke in Apache, the words sharp, urgent. Tahoma stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. He was hurt. Badly. His breathing was shallow, his face pale, sweat beading on his brow despite the shade. I knelt beside him, my hand gentle on his shoulder. "What happened?" I asked, my voice low, meant only for him. His ancient eyes met mine, heavy with pain but clear with truth. "I fell," he whispered in our tongue. "Tripped on a root, the white man. He helped me, gave me water, brought me to shade." I froze, my mind grappling with his words. Helped him? This rancher, this Caleb Thornton, who'd likely spat curses at the sight of an Apache on his land? I didn't believe it, not yet. I stood slowly, turning to face Thornton. He hadn't moved, but his eyes darted between me and my warriors, calculating his odds. They weren't good. "You," I said in English, my voice cold as winter wind. "Caleb Thornton, this is your land." It wasn't a question. He nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, sir. And your father was trespassing." Trespassing. The word hit me like a slap, as if my father, whose people had hunted here for centuries, could trespass on land the Creator shaped long before Thornton's family ever set foot in this territory. My hand twitched toward the knife at my side, but Father's voice stopped me. Weak, rasping, but firm. "Kyle," he said in Apache. "He speaks the truth. He didn't push me. I fell." I held Thornton's gaze, searching for lies. His face was pale, but his eyes didn't waver. Fearful, yes, but not guilty. Not yet. "Tell me," I said, stepping closer, my shadow falling across him. "What happened here?" Thornton swallowed hard, his voice steady but strained. "Found him by the creek. Told him to leave. He stood to go, but he tripped. Hit the ground hard. I didn't touch him. I swear it." His words hung in the air, fragile as smoke. I studied him, weighing every syllable. My warriors watched, silent, their presence a reminder of the stakes. One wrong move, one hint of deception, and this ranch would burn. Father spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. "He gave me water, Cale. Helped me to this tree. He could have left me." I turned back to my father, his words sinking in. Thornton had helped him. A white man raised on stories of Apache raiders had shown mercy. Why? I looked at Thornton again, seeing him differently now. Not just a rancher, not just an enemy. A man caught in a moment bigger than himself. His hands were empty, his rifle still untouched. He could have run, could have shot, but he hadn't. My mind raced. Father was hurt, ribs broken, maybe worse. He couldn't ride, couldn't walk. The nearest doctor was in town, miles away, and I knew no white doctor would come willingly for an Apache. Thornton's land, Thornton's problem. But something in Father's eyes told me this wasn't just about land or laws. This was about something older, deeper. A test. For him, for me, maybe for Thornton too. "You helped my father," I said, my voice quieter now, but no less sharp. "Why?" Thornton blinked, caught off guard. "He was hurt," he said simply. "Couldn't leave him like that." His honesty disarmed me, just for a moment. I glanced at Father, his face etched with pain, but also something else, trust. He saw something in this rancher I didn't yet understand. The sun was sinking now, painting the sky in blood-red streaks. Time was running out. Father's breathing grew weaker, his skin grayer. I made my decision. "My father stays here," I told Thornton, my tone leaving no room for argument. "He's too hurt to move. You'll care for him until he's well." Thornton's eyes widened, panic flickering across his face. "I've got a ranch to run," he started, but I cut him off. "You'll have help," I said, gesturing to Red Wind and Cloud Dancer. "My warriors stay with you. They'll tend to my father, and your cattle." Thornton stared at me, then at my warriors, his mind clearly racing. I could see the fear in him, the weight of what I was asking. Good. Let him feel it. Let him know what it meant to have an Apache elder on his land, with my warriors watching his every move. Father coughed, a wet, painful sound that made my chest tighten. "Kyle," he whispered, "this land, it remembers. The creek, it called me back." His words hit me like a stone. This wasn't just about a trespass. This was about history, about the stories our people carried, about the water that tied us to this place. And now, somehow, this white man was part of it. I turned back to Thornton, my voice low, final. "You didn't hurt my father, but he's hurt on your land. That makes you responsible." Thornton nodded, slow, like a man accepting his fate. "I'll do what I can," he said. I held his gaze, letting him see the weight of my words. "You will. Because if my father dies here under your watch." I let the threat hang, unspoken but clear. The creek bubbled behind us, its song unchanged by the tension between us. My warriors waited, their horses snorting softly. Thornton stood alone, a man caught between his world and mine. I didn't trust him, not yet, but Father did. And that was enough to keep this from turning to blood. For now. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of sage and dust. I mounted my horse, my eyes never leaving Thornton's. "Red Wind and Cloud Dancer, stay," I said. "The rest of us will return when the sun rises." Thornton nodded again, his face a mask of resolve and fear. Good. Let him feel both. They'd keep him sharp. As we rode back toward the ridge, the sun dipping low, I glanced back at my father, resting under the cottonwood. His eyes met mine, steady despite the pain. He believed in this rancher, believed in this moment. I wasn't sure I did, but I'd watch. I'd wait, and if Thornton failed my father, he'd face me again, and next time there'd be no words to save him. The wind howled across the plain, sharp as a blade. My heart thundered louder than the hooves of our horses. 8 of us rode hard, dust swirling in our wake. My warriors, Red Wind, Cloud Dancer, Iron Hoof, and the others, kept pace, their faces grim, eyes locked on the horizon. My father, Tahoma, was missing. 85 years old, frail as a winter reed, but stubborn as the mountains. He'd slipped away before dawn, drawn to that cursed creek on the white man's land, Caleb Thornton's land, a rancher with a name whispered in town like a warning. I didn't know him, didn't trust him, but I knew one thing: if he'd hurt my father, this day would end in blood. The sun hung high, scorching the earth, baking the air till it shimmered. My stallion snorted, sensing my rage. I gripped the reins, my knuckles tight, my mind racing. Father had spoken of the creek last night, his voice soft, like a prayer. "Water calls to all," he'd said, his eyes lost in memories of our people's past. He'd mentioned Thornton too. Said the man's grandfather once shared this land, let our horses drink when the drought came. A story from another time. I didn't care about stories, not now. My father was out there alone, on land claimed by a man who likely saw us as savages, thieves, raiders. I'd heard the tales white men told, lies that fueled their fear, lies that made them quick to pull a trigger. We crested the ridge, the valley opening below us like a wound. There it was, the creek. Its waters sparkled, mocking the dry earth around it. And there, under a gnarled cottonwood, I saw him. My father, Tahoma. His gray hair caught the sun, shining like silver against the tree's shadow. He was still, too still, his body slumped, one hand clutching his walking stick. My breath caught, sharp and cold, blood stained his forehead, a thin line snaking down his weathered face. My vision narrowed, the world shrinking to that single image, father, hurt, maybe dying. Then I saw him, Caleb Thornton, the rancher. He stood over my father, tall, broad, his hat casting a dark shadow. His boots were planted wide, hands on hips, a rifle propped against his saddle a few feet away. My blood boiled. Was this his doing? Had he struck an old man? My hand twitched toward the knife at my side, the weight of it familiar, comforting. My warriors tensed behind me, their horses pawing the ground. Red Wind's eyes burned, waiting for my signal. Cloud Dancer's hand rested on his bow, steady as stone. We were 8, he was 1. The math was simple, but I wasn't here for a massacre. Not yet. "Hold," I said, my voice low, cutting through the wind. My warriors froze, their trust in me absolute. I studied Thornton taking his measure. He was younger than I'd thought, mid-30s maybe, with the hard edges of a man who'd fought for everything he owned. His face was pale, his eyes wide, but he didn't reach for the rifle. Not yet. Smart, or scared. Either way, it bought him a moment. I dismounted, my boots hitting the dirt with a thud. The air crackled, thick with the promise of violence. My warriors stayed mounted, their shadows long and menacing against the ridge. Thornton's gaze flicked between us, his hands empty but trembling. Good. Let him feel the weight of who we were. I stepped forward, my eyes locked on my father. "Father!" I called in Apache, my voice sharp, urgent. Tahoma stirred, his head lifting slowly. His eyes, heavy with pain, met mine. Relief hit me like a wave, but it was fleeting. He was alive, but hurt, badly. His breathing was shallow, his face gray, sweat beading despite the shade. A cut on his forehead oozed blood, staining the earth. My chest tightened, rage and fear twisting together. I knelt beside him, my hand gentle on his shoulder. "What happened?" I asked, my voice soft, meant only for him. His lips moved, slow, pained. I fell, he whispered in our tongue. A root, my fault, the rancher. He helped me, gave me water, brought me here. His words hit me like a stone. Helped him? This white man, this Caleb Thornton, who'd likely cursed the sight of an Apache on his land. I didn't believe it, not fully. I stood, slow, deliberate, my eyes turning to Thornton. He hadn't moved, but his gaze was steady now, less fear and more defiance. He knew who I was. Every rancher in these parts did. Thomas Red Hawk, leader of the Apache, the man who'd brokered 3 peace treaties, the man who'd tracked cattle rustlers and left them trembling but alive, the man who'd never broken his word, and now, the man standing over his injured father on a white man's land. You, I said in English, my voice cold, sharp as a blade. Caleb Thornton, this is your land, not a question, a statement. He nodded, his jaw tight. Yes, sir, he said, his voice low, careful. Your father was trespassing. The word burned in my ears, trespassing. As if my father, whose ancestors hunted these lands when Thornton's people were still across the ocean, could trespass. My hand twitched again, the knife calling. But father's voice stopped me, weak but firm. KL, he said, using my Apache name. He speaks truth. He didn't hurt me. I held Thornton's gaze, searching for deception. His eyes didn't flinch, but they held fear. Fear of me, of my warriors, of what this moment could become. I stepped closer, my shadow falling across him. Tell me, I said, my voice low, dangerous. What happened here? Thornton swallowed, his words coming slow but clear. Found him by the creek, told him to leave. He tried to stand, but he tripped. Fell hard, hit his head. I didn't touch him, I swear it. His voice shook, but his eyes stayed steady. No lies there. Not yet. Father coughed, a wet, ragged sound that cut through me. I knelt again, my hand on his arm. I gave him water, Thornton said, unprompted. Helped him to the shade. He couldn't walk. I looked at Father, his face etched with pain but also something else. Trust. He nodded, slight, confirming Thornton's story. My mind churned. This rancher had helped my father. Why? Most men like him would have left an old Apache to die, or worse, put a bullet in him to avoid trouble. But Thornton hadn't. He'd acted with honor, or fear. I wasn't sure which. The sun beat down, relentless, the creek's soft murmur mocking the tension. My warriors watched, silent, their presence a weight Thornton couldn't ignore. Redwind's eyes flicked to me, waiting for my lead. Cloud Dancer's hand still rested on his bow, ready. I stood facing Thornton again. You helped my father, I said, my voice quieter now, but no less sharp. Why? He blinked, caught off guard. He was hurt, he said, simple, like it was obvious. Couldn't leave him like that. His words hung in the air, raw, honest. I studied him, seeing him anew, not just a rancher, not just a white man, a man caught in a moment he didn't choose. Father's breathing grew weaker, each rasp a stab to my heart. I looked at him, his eyes half closed, his body fragile against the tree, ribs broken, maybe worse. He couldn't ride, couldn't walk. The nearest doctor was in town, 10 miles away, and I knew no white doctor would come for an Apache. Not willingly. Thornton's land, Thornton's problem. But Father's words echoed in my mind. Water calls to all. This wasn't just about land or laws. This was about something deeper, a test. For me, for Thornton, maybe for us all. I made my decision, my voice cutting through the silence. My father stays here, I told Thornton, my tone final. He's too hurt to move. You'll care for him until he's well. Thornton's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. I've got a ranch to run, he started, his voice rising. I cut him off, stepping closer, my presence a warning. You'll have help, I said, gesturing to Redwind and Cloud Dancer. My warriors stay. They'll tend to my father. And your cattle. Thornton stared, his mind racing, fear and defiance warring in his eyes. He didn't like it, didn't want us here, but he had no choice. Father coughed again, his face paling further. My chest tightened, rage giving way to fear. He was fading, fast. I knelt beside him, my hand gentle on his shoulder. Kyle, he whispered, his voice barely audible. This land, it remembers. The creek, it called me. His words hit me like a fist. This wasn't just a trespass. This was a return. a pilgrimage to a place where our people once thrived, where Thornton's grandfather, a man I'd never met, had shown kindness. And now, this rancher, this Caleb Thornton, was part of it. I stood, my eyes locking onto Thornton's. "You didn't hurt my father," I said, my voice low, steady. "But he's hurt on your land. That makes you responsible." Thornton nodded, slow, like a man staring down a storm. "I'll do what I can," he said, his voice firm despite the fear. I held his gaze, letting him feel the weight of my words. "You will," I said, "because if my father dies here under your watch..." I didn't finish. I didn't need to. The threat hung between us, heavy as the dust in the air. The creek sang its endless song, indifferent to the men standing over it. My warriors waited, their horses shifting, ready to move at my command. Thornton stood alone, a man caught between worlds. I didn't trust him, not fully, but Father did, and that was enough to keep this from turning to blood. For now, I turned to Redwind, his young face fierce, eager. "You and Cloud Dancer stay," I said in Apache. "Watch the rancher, protect my father." Redwind nodded, his eyes flicking to Thornton, sizing him up. Cloud Dancer dismounted, his movements smooth, deliberate. The other warriors would ride back with me, to our camp, to wait, to prepare. I mounted my horse, my gaze never leaving Thornton. "We'll return at dawn," I said, my voice carrying across the valley. "Keep my father alive." Thornton nodded again, his face a mask of resolve. Fear still lingered in his eyes, but there was something else now. Determination. Good. He'd need it. As we rode back toward the ridge, the sun sinking low, I glanced back at my father, resting under the cottonwood. His eyes met mine, steady despite the pain. He believed in this rancher, believed in this moment. I wasn't sure I did, but I'd watch, I'd wait, and if Thornton failed, if my father's life slipped away on this white man's land, I'd be back, and next time, there'd be no mercy. The wind carried the scent of sage, sharp and wild. The creek's song faded as we climbed the ridge, my warriors silent behind me. This wasn't over, not yet. The land remembered, Father had said, and so did I. Every promise, every debt, every life. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in streaks of fire. My father's breathing grew weaker, each rasp a blade in my chest. Tahoma lay under the cottonwood, his face gray, his eyes half closed, blood crusted on his forehead, a stark line against his weathered skin. Broken ribs, maybe worse. He couldn't ride, couldn't walk. The nearest doctor was in town, 10 miles away, in a world that spat on men like us. White men's medicine could save him, but no white doctor would come for an Apache, not without a fight. I stood over my father, my shadow long across the dirt. Caleb Thornton, the rancher, watched me, his eyes wary but steady. He'd helped my father to shade, given him water, a small act, but enough to keep my knife sheathed. For now, my warriors, Redwind, Cloud Dancer, and the others, stood ready, their horses snorting softly, their hands near their weapons. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of what came next. Thornton's land, Thornton's problem. But my father's life hung in the balance, and I'd be damned if I let it slip away. "Redwind," I said, my voice low, sharp in our tongue. The young warrior stepped forward, his war paint stark against his cheekbones. His eyes burned with loyalty, ready for any order. "You'll ride with Thornton. To town. Find the doctor." Redwind nodded, his gaze flicking to the rancher. Thornton's face tightened, his jaw clenching. He didn't like it. Didn't want an Apache on his land, let alone riding beside him. Too bad. He didn't get a choice. "You," I said, turning to Thornton, my voice cold as the creek's water. "You'll bring the doctor. Now." Thornton's eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking through his resolve. "The doctor won't come," he said, his voice rough. "Not for..." He stopped, but I heard the unspoken word. Indian. My blood surged, hot and fierce. I stepped closer, my shadow swallowing his. "You'll make him come," I said, each word a hammer. "Because if my father dies here, on your land..." I let the threat hang, heavy as a storm cloud. Thornton swallowed, his face pale but set. "I'll try," he said, his voice steadier than I expected. I studied him, searching for weakness. He was scared, no doubt, but there was something else in his eyes. Resolve. Maybe honor. I didn't trust it. Not fully. But Father did. And Father's judgment had kept our people alive through wars and betrayals. I nodded, slight, a signal to move. Redwind goes with you, I said. He speaks your tongue. He'll know if the doctor lies. Thornton glanced at Redwind, his shoulders tensing. That might make things worse, he muttered. I smiled, sharp as a blade. Or it might make them honest. Redwind mounted his horse, his movements fluid, graceful. Thornton swung into his saddle, his face a mask of determination and dread. I watched them ride off, their horses kicking up dust as they disappeared toward the horizon. The sun was dipping fast, the sky bleeding red. Every minute counted. Father's life depended on a white man I barely knew and a doctor who'd likely spit in my face before helping. My fists clenched, my nails biting into my palms. If Thornton failed, if the doctor refused, this ranch would see blood before dawn. I knelt beside Father, my hand gentle on his arm. His eyes fluttered open, heavy with pain but clear with purpose. "Kyle," he whispered, using my Apache name. "The rancher. He's not like the others." I frowned, my chest tight. "He's a white man," I said, my voice low. "They're all the same." Father shook his head, slow, painful. "Not all," he said. "His grandfather, he shared water. Long ago, this land remembers." His words hit me, stirring memories I didn't want. Stories of a time when trust wasn't a fool's game. I didn't believe in that time, not anymore. Cloud Dancer stood watch, his bow ready, his eyes scanning the ridge. The other warriors tended their horses, their silence a comfort. They trusted me, trusted my judgment. But as I looked at Father, his breathing shallow, his face pale, doubt gnawed at me. Had I made the right call? Sending Thornton, a man I didn't trust, with Redwind, a warrior barely 20 winters old. If they failed, if the doctor turned them away, Father's life would be on my hands. I pushed the thought down, burying it deep. Doubt was a luxury I couldn't afford. The creek bubbled softly, its song a cruel contrast to the storm in my heart. I stood, pacing, my boots crunching against the dry earth. The ranch was quiet, too quiet, the kind of stillness that came before a fight. Thornton's cattle grazed in the distance, oblivious to the stakes. This land, this creek, it meant something to Father, to our people, a place where our ancestors hunted, where water flowed free before fences and deeds carved it up. And now, it was the place where my father might die, unless Thornton came through. Minutes dragged, each one heavier than the last. I scanned the horizon, my eyes straining for dust, for movement, nothing. My warriors watched me, their faces unreadable, but their loyalty a weight I carried. Father coughed, a wet, ragged sound that made my chest tighten. I knelt again, my hand on his shoulder. "Hold on," I whispered in Apache. "They'll come." His eyes met mine, steady despite the pain. "I trust you, Kyle," he said. "And him. Him, Thornton, a white man." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but his faith stopped me. Father saw something in this rancher, something I couldn't. The sun touched the horizon, its light fading fast. My heart pounded, a war drum in my chest. If Thornton didn't return, if the doctor refused, I'd ride to town myself. I'd drag that white man here, willing or not. But then I saw it, dust rising in the distance, faint but growing. Hooves, 3 sets, maybe 4. I stood, my hand on my knife, my warriors tensing behind me. Redwind's horse appeared first, his form unmistakable. Then Thornton, riding hard, his face grim. Behind them, a buggy, rattling across the rough ground. The doctor. They'd done it. The buggy stopped near the creek, and a white man climbed out, his face sour, his eyes darting nervously. Dr. Harris. I'd heard of him. A man who'd rather let an Apache die than dirty his hands. Thornton dismounted, his boots hitting the dirt with purpose. Redwind stayed close, his presence a warning. Harris clutched his medical bag, his gaze flicking to my warriors, then to me. Fear rolled off him, sharp and sour. Good. Let him feel it. "Father," I said, kneeling beside Tahoma. "The doctor's here." His eyes opened, slow, pained. He nodded, slight, giving permission. Harris approached, his steps reluctant, his face a mask of disdain. "I'll need to examine him," he said, his voice tight. I nodded, my eyes never leaving his. "Do it," I said, "and do it right." My warriors closed in, their presence a silent threat. Harris swallowed, his hands shaking as he opened his bag. The examination was tense, every movement watched. Harris's hands were gentle, but his face was hard, like he resented every second. My warriors stood like statues, their eyes locked on him. Thornton hovered nearby, his face unreadable but his shoulders tense. Red Wind whispered to me in Apache, his voice low. The doctor didn't want to come. Thornton made him. I glanced at the rancher, my mind shifting. He'd faced down a man who hated us, risked his own standing to bring help. Maybe father was right. Maybe Thornton was different. "2 broken ribs," Harris said finally, his voice clipped. "One's pressing on the lung. Some bleeding inside, but not fatal. Yet." He looked at me, his eyes wary. "He needs rest. Medicine. Time." I nodded, my jaw tight. "How long?" I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Harris said. "If he's moved, it could kill him." I turned to Thornton, my gaze hard. "He stays here," I said. Thornton's face fell, but he nodded. "I'll do what I can," he said again. Harris packed his bag, eager to leave. "I'll check on him in 3 days," he said, his voice grudging. "If he worsens, send for me." Red Wind stepped forward, his smile sharp. "We'll know where to find you," he said. Harris paled, hurrying to his buggy. Thornton watched him go, then turned to me. "I did what you asked," he said, his voice low. I nodded, slow. "You did," I said. "For now." The sky darkened, stars piercing the dusk. Father rested, his breathing steadier with the doctor's medicine. Red Wind and Cloud Dancer stayed, their eyes on Thornton. The other warriors would ride back with me to our camp. But I'd return, I'd watch. Father's life was in Thornton's hands now, and if he failed, this land would see justice, Apache justice. The days stretched long, each one heavy with the weight of waiting. My father, Tahoma, lay under a makeshift shelter of branches and blankets, his breathing steady but weak. The cottonwood's shade shielded him from the relentless sun, but his face was still pale, his eyes heavy with pain. 2 broken ribs, the white doctor had said. Rest was his only hope. Rest on Caleb Thornton's land. A white man's ranch. The irony cut deep like a knife in my gut. This land, where our ancestors hunted, now held my father's life in its hands. And Thornton's. Red Wind and Cloud Dancer stayed, as I'd ordered. They watched over father, their eyes sharp, their hands never far from their knives. Thornton moved cautious around them like a man walking a cliff's edge. Garfield, he didn't trust us, didn't blame him, but he worked hard, tending his cattle, mending fences, while my warriors tended to father and kept watch. I rode back each evening, my horse's hooves pounding the earth, my heart torn between duty and doubt. Father believed in Thornton, saw honor in him. I wasn't so sure. But every day the rancher proved me wrong. The first week was tense, like a bowstring pulled tight. Thornton kept his distance, his eyes wary, his words few. Red Wind tracked cattle with a skill that left Thornton speechless, finding strays in canyons the rancher didn't know existed. Cloud Dancer read the sky, predicting storms before they came, moving Thornton's herd to high ground just in time. I saw it in Thornton's face, surprise, then respect. It burned me to admit it, but my warriors were earning his trust, and he was earning theirs. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in hues of fire, I sat with father by the creek. His strength was returning, slow but sure. He spoke of Thornton's grandfather, a man who'd shared water with our people during the drought of '62. "This land remembers kindness," father said, his voice soft, like the creek's murmur. I frowned, my chest tight. "Kindness is rare," I said, "especially from his kind." Father's eyes met mine, wise and steady. "Not so rare, Kyle. You'll see." The second week, things shifted. Thornton began to talk, his words halting at first, then freer. He asked Red Wind about tracking, listened close as the young warrior explained the signs of the land. He watched Cloud Dancer read the clouds, his face a mix of awe and curiosity. One night, by the fire, Thornton shared his coffee, bitter and black, with my warriors. Red Wind took a sip, grimaced, and laughed. Thornton laughed too, a sound rough but real. I watched from the shadows, my heart uneasy. Laughter was dangerous. It built bridges, and bridges could be burned. Father grew stronger, sitting up now, his voice clearer. He spoke of the creek, of days when our people roamed free. Thornton listened, his face thoughtful, his eyes distant. "My father never told me that story," he said once, his voice low. "About your people watering horses here." Father smiled, slow, knowing. "Your grandfather judged men by actions, not blood." The words hit me hard, stirring memories of a time when trust wasn't a fool's game. I didn't want to believe it, but Thornton was proving it, day by day. Redwind and Cloud Dancer worked the ranch like it was their own. Redwind tracked a lost calf through a storm, bringing it back alive. Cloud Dancer saved a herd from a flash flood, his instincts sharper than any white man's map. Thornton watched, his jaw tight, his eyes changing. Respect grew, slow but steady. I saw it, hated it, but couldn't deny it. My warriors were no longer strangers. They were allies. One night, Father called me close, his voice strong despite the pain. "KL," he said, "this rancher, he's like his grandfather, a man of honor." I shook my head, my chest tight. "He's a white man," I said. "They break promises." Father's eyes held mine, unyielding. "Not this one," he said. "Watch him." I did, every day. And every day, Thornton surprised me. He worked beside Redwind, mended fences with Cloud Dancer, shared meals by the fire. He didn't have to, but he did. The third week, Father stood, slow, shaky, but upright. The firelight danced on his face, his strength returning like a river after drought. Thornton watched, relief in his eyes. "He's tough," he said to me, his voice low. I nodded, my throat tight. "He's Apache," I said. Thornton smiled, faint, real. "Yeah," he said. "That explains it." For the first time I felt it. Respect. Not trust. Not yet. But respect. The kind that grew in silence, like grass after rain. The creek sang its endless song, the stars bright above. My warriors worked, Father healed, and Thornton changed. I saw it, felt it, fought it. But Father was right. This land remembered, and so did I. Thornton wasn't just a rancher. He was a man caught in a moment bigger than himself. A moment that was changing us all. 3 weeks had passed, each day heavy with change. The sun sank low, casting golden light across the ranch. My father, Tahoma, stood tall now, his strength returning like a river finding its course. The cottonwood's shade no longer held him like a prisoner. He walked, slow but steady, his eyes bright with life. The creek bubbled nearby, its song a constant reminder of why we were here. Caleb Thornton's land, a white man's ranch, a place I'd sworn to burn if Father died. But he hadn't. And now, everything was different. Redwind and Cloud Dancer worked the ranch, their skills weaving into its rhythm. Redwind tracked cattle with eyes sharper than a hawk's, saving Thornton's herd from hidden canyons. Cloud Dancer read the sky, steering the cattle clear of storms that would have drowned them. Thornton watched, his face a mix of awe and respect. He didn't say much, but his actions spoke. He shared his fire, his food, his coffee, bitter as sin, but warm in the hand. My warriors didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. They worked, ate, laughed. Laughter. It still burned me, that sound, but it was real. I rode in each evening, my horse's hooves pounding the earth. Father's recovery was my anchor, my reason. But the ranch was changing me too. Thornton wasn't the enemy I'd expected. He was a man like me, fighting for what he loved. His land, his life. I saw it in his eyes, his hands, his sweat. He didn't have to help Father, didn't have to face the town's scorn to bring the doctor, but he did. And every day he proved it wasn't just fear driving him, it was honor. That night the sky burned with stars, the air cool and sharp. Father sat by the fire, his face strong again, his voice clear. Thornton sat across from him, his hat off, his face lit by the flames. Redwind and Cloud Dancer were there, their eyes bright, their laughter quiet but real. I stood in the shadows, watching, my heart heavy. The world was shifting and I wasn't sure I was ready. "Father," I said, sitting beside him, "you're strong enough to ride." He nodded, slow, his eyes on the fire. "Strong enough," he said, "but not eager to leave." I frowned, my chest tight. Why? I asked. He looked at me, his gaze ancient, wise. This place, he said, it's more than land. It's a bridge. A bridge. The word hit me, stirring something deep. Father saw it before I did. Thornton wasn't just a rancher. He was a path to something bigger. Thornton spoke, his voice low, rough. What kind of future are we talking? I sat across from him, the fire warm between us. Survival, I said, my voice steady. The railroad's coming. Mines. Settlements. They'll change everything. Thornton's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. What's that got to do with me? I leaned forward, my gaze hard. Everything, I said. Alone, your prey. Social media is full of it, and for good reason. This is a story of raw courage, bitter prejudice, and unexpected alliance. It's a tale that could spark a revolution, the kind of Wild West epic that resonates with the 35-plus American audience who love tales of the frontier. Let's dive into the heart of this narrative, where every choice is a gamble and every moment a test of character. From the perspective of Thomas Red Hawk, the Apache leader, this story is a powder keg of tension, wisdom, and redemption. It's not just about a cowboy and an Apache elder. It's about two worlds colliding, about fear giving way to respect, and about the power of human decency to bridge divides. The rugged prose, sharp dialogue, and vivid imagery aim to grip listeners, evoking the dusty trails and blazing sunsets of the American West. So, saddle up and let's explore this tale of grit, honor, and unlikely kinship. The story of Caleb Thornton, Tahoma, and Thomas Red Hawk hits like a dust storm in the desert, raw, intense, and full of heart. It's more than a tale of a cowboy facing off with an Apache elder under a blazing sun. It's a mirror held up to our own lives, showing us how fear, prejudice, and courage collide in the heat of a single moment. As I sat with this story, letting the creeks murmur and the hoofbeats echo in my mind, I felt its weight. It's not just about the Wild West. It's about us, today, tomorrow, and the choices we make when the world feels divided. First off, this story grabs you by the collar and doesn't let go. Caleb, a rancher hardened by sweat and pride, finds Tahoma, an 85-year-old Apache, on his land. He's ready to chase him off, his heart full of old tales about savage Indians. But when Tahoma falls, hurt and frail, something shifts. Caleb helps him, despite every instinct screaming to walk away. Then comes Thomas Red Hawk, the Apache leader, riding in with his warriors, a force of nature ready to defend his father. The tension is thick, like the air before a thunderstorm. Yet through it all there's no blood spilled. Instead, there's water shared, shade offered, and eventually a partnership forged. It's a story that starts with a spark of conflict but ends with a fire of understanding. What hits me hardest is Caleb's journey. He's not a hero, not at first. He's a man shaped by his world, a world of fences, deeds, and distrust. But when Tahoma falls, Caleb faces a choice: turn away or step up. That moment, that hesitation, feels so human. I've been there, haven't you? Standing at a crossroads, knowing the easy path but feeling the tug of something deeper. Caleb chooses the harder road, not because he's noble, but because he can't ignore the frail old man bleeding on his land. That's the first lesson. Courage isn't always a loud, heroic act. Sometimes it's just doing what's right, even when it scares you stiff. Then there's Thomas Red Hawk. This man carries the weight of his people, his father's life, and a history of broken promises. Yet, he doesn't draw his knife. He listens, he watches, he sees Caleb's fear but also his actions. Thomas's strength isn't just in his warriors or his reputation, it's in his restraint, his ability to see past prejudice to possibility. That's a lesson for us all. In a world quick to judge, quick to fight, holding back and seeking understanding is a kind of power. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. I think about my own life, how often I've jumped to conclusions about someone different from me. Thomas reminds me to pause, to look deeper, to find the human behind the stranger. Tahoma, the old Apache, is the heart of this story. His quiet dignity, even in pain, speaks louder than any war cry. He sees the land not as property, but as a living thing, tied to his people's past. His words, "Water calls to all living things," cut through the noise of conflict. They remind me that some truths are universal. Water, life, kindness, they don't belong to one race or one side. In my own life, I've seen how easy it is to draw lines. Us versus them, mine versus yours. Tahoma's lesson is simple but profound. What binds us is stronger than what divides us. Next time I'm tempted to shut someone out, I'll think of that creek, flowing free for anyone who needs it. The partnership that grows between Caleb, Thomas, and the Apache warriors is the story's soul. It's not just about survival, it's about thriving together. Red Wind and Cloud Dancer don't just help Caleb's ranch, they teach him, and he learns. They break bread, share fires, and build something new. That hits home. In my community, at work, even online, I see walls go up too fast. This story says, tear them down, work together, learn from each other. The railroad's coming, Thomas says, and it'll change everything. That's true today too. Change is always coming. We can face it alone or we can build alliances like Caleb and Thomas did. That's how we survive. That's how we grow. So, what do I take from this? Courage to act even when I'm scared. Wisdom to listen even when I'm angry. Faith that kindness can bridge even the widest gaps. These aren't just Wild West lessons, they're life lessons. Next time I meet someone different, someone I don't understand, I'll remember Caleb's choice, Thomas's restraint, Tahoma's wisdom. I'll choose to share the water, to offer the shade, to build the bridge. This story isn't just a tale of a cowboy and an Apache. It's a call to be better, to see past fear and find the human on the other side. So, let's talk about it. Drop a 1 in the comments if this story hit you like it hit me, and smash that like button if you're ready for more Wild West tales that cut to the bone. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and stick around. There's a twist at the end of this video that'll make your jaw drop. Don't miss it. Let's keep this fire burning, folks.